Inside Belmarsh Prison, Britain's most feared jail. The fortress on the Thames. In southeast London, behind layers of steel, concrete, and surveillance, stands a prison that has become a symbol of the British state's hardest edge. This is Prison Belmarsh, a facility designed not for rehabilitation first, but for absolute control. Often called Britain's Guantanamo, Belmarsh has housed some of the country's most dangerous convicted criminals, terror suspects, and some of the most legally controversial prisoners in modern British history. Its name alone carries weight, invoking fear, secrecy, and debate. But what actually happens inside Belmarsh? How did it earn its reputation? And how does life inside one of Europe's most secure prisons truly function? Tonight, we go inside, fact by fact, record by record. Before we begin, take a moment to support the Inmate Diaries. If you value deeply researched, factual prison documentaries, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us continue uncovering stories that matter, accurately, responsibly, and without sensationalism. What is Belmarsh? Belmarsh is a Category A men's prison, the highest security classification in the United Kingdom. Category A prisoners are those considered so dangerous that their escape must be made virtually impossible. Operated by Prison and Probation Service, Belmarsh officially opened in 1991, replacing the aging Victorian-era prisons that could no longer meet modern security demands. Located in Thamesmead, southeast London, Belmarsh was designed from the ground up as a fortress. Every structural decision, from sightlines to movement control, was engineered to limit autonomy and maximize observation. Unlike many older British prisons, Belmarsh did not evolve over centuries. It was purpose-built during an era defined by terrorism fears, organized crime, and increasingly complex security threats. From the start, it was never meant to be ordinary. Why Belmarsh has a feared reputation? Belmarsh's reputation is not built on myth, it is built on who has been held here and under what conditions. The prison primarily holds convicted Category A prisoners. Individuals on remand for the most serious offenses. Prisoners held under terrorism-related legislation. Inmates transferred from other prisons due to extreme security risks. Unlike standard prisons, Belmarsh routinely houses individuals who are under 23-hour-a-day cell confinement. Subject to constant monitoring. Restricted in communication, association, and movement. These measures are not universal, but they are far more common here than in lower category facilities. The fear surrounding Belmarsh stems from its function, not folklore. It is where the British state places people it believes cannot be safely managed elsewhere. Architecture of control. Belmarsh's design reflects modern carceral philosophy, control through structure. The prison is divided into multiple units, each capable of operating independently if required. Movement is tightly scheduled, electronically controlled, and constantly supervised. Key architectural features include reinforced concrete construction, minimal blind spots for staff, secure exercise yards enclosed by high walls, segregation units physically isolated from main wings. Cells are small but functional. They typically include a bed, a toilet and sink, limited personal storage, controlled access to television or radio, depending on status. While conditions meet basic legal standards, they are intentionally austere. Belmarsh is not designed to comfort. It is designed to contain. Daily life inside. Life inside Belmarsh follows rigid routine. For many inmates, especially those on remand or under special restrictions, days are defined by extended periods locked inside cells, short, scheduled exercise periods, limited social interaction, frequent security checks. Association with other prisoners can be restricted or denied entirely, depending on assessed risk. Education and work programs do exist, but access varies significantly. High-risk prisoners may spend months, or longer, without participating in group activities. Former inspection reports have noted that prolonged isolation can have psychological effects, though the prison maintains these measures are necessary for safety. Whether these conditions are justified remains one of the most debated aspects of Belmarsh. Belmarsh and the law. Belmarsh is not just a prison, it is a legal battleground. Over the years, it has been central to major legal debates involving human rights law, pre-trial detention lengths, conditions of confinement, national security legislation. Some detainees held at Belmarsh were not serving criminal sentences at all, but were detained under anti-terrorism laws, particularly in the early 2000s. In several cases, British courts and the European Court of Human Rights scrutinized detention practices linked to Belmarsh, leading to changes in law and policy. These legal challenges did not shut the prison down, but they reshaped how the UK balances security and civil liberties. Staff inside the walls. Working at Belmarsh is considered one of the most demanding assignments in the British prison system. Officers are trained to manage highly volatile prisoners, extreme security scenarios, psychological stress environments. Reports have documented high levels of occupational stress, staff turnover, mental health strain among officers. Despite this, many officers describe their work as necessary and professional, emphasizing that order inside Belmarsh depends on discipline, consistency, and vigilance. Without staff control, the prison's security model would collapse. The silence inside. What may be most unsettling about Belmarsh is not violence or chaos, but silence. Unlike overcrowded local prisons, Belmarsh can feel eerily quiet. Movement is controlled. Noise is minimized. Human contact is limited. Former inspectors have described sections of the prison as oppressively still. A byproduct of security rather than neglect. For inmates, that silence can be as punishing as confinement itself. Prisoners, power, and controversy. Who gets sent to Belmarsh? Belmarsh does not function like a standard local prison. It is primarily reserved for men deemed too dangerous, too influential, or too sensitive to be housed elsewhere. Prisoners sent to Belmarsh generally fall into several categories. Convicted Category A prisoners serving long or whole life sentences. Terrorism-related defendants on remand. Individuals accused of crimes involving national security. Prisoners transferred due to escape risk or threats to prison order. Importantly, many people held at Belmarsh have not yet been convicted. UK law allows for pre-trial detention in high-security facilities when courts determine that risks cannot be managed elsewhere. This has made Belmarsh uniquely controversial, because punishment, in theory, should only follow conviction. Terrorism and the early 2000s. Belmarsh became internationally known in the early 2000s following the UK government's response to global terrorism. After the September 11 attacks in the United States, Parliament passed new counter-terrorism legislation. Under these laws, certain foreign nationals suspected of terrorism could be detained without trial if they could not be deported. Several of those detainees were held at Belmarsh. This period marked a turning point. For the first time in modern British history, a civilian prison was being used to hold individuals indefinitely without criminal conviction. Legal scholars, journalists, and human rights organizations began referring to Belmarsh as a symbol of preventive detention, though British authorities rejected comparisons to extrajudicial facilities. Legal challenges and court rulings. The legality of detention practices associated with Belmarsh did not go unchallenged. In 2004, the UK's highest court at the time ruled that indefinite detention of foreign terrorism suspects without trial was incompatible with human rights law. As a result, the government repealed parts of the legislation. Detainees were released or placed under alternative restrictions. Belmarsh's role shifted, but its reputation endured. These rulings did not declare Belmarsh unlawful as a prison, but they fundamentally changed how it could be used. The case remains one of the most significant constitutional moments in modern British legal history. High-profile prisoners. Belmarsh has housed some of the most high-profile detainees in the world. Among them was Julian Assange, who was held at Belmarsh while contesting extradition to the United States. Assange's detention drew global attention, with supporters arguing that conditions were excessively harsh for a remand prisoner. His confinement damaged his health. British authorities maintained that he was treated according to his security classification. Belmarsh conditions met legal standards. Medical experts, UN officials, and courts offered differing assessments. Some concerns were formally raised, others were disputed by the UK government. What is undisputed is that Assange's detention made Belmarsh a household name far beyond Britain. Conditions and criticism. Over the years, inspection reports have painted a mixed picture of life inside Belmarsh. Findings have included adequate physical security, professional staff conduct, serious concerns about mental health support, prolonged isolation for some prisoners. Inspectors have repeatedly warned that long periods of confinement, especially for remand prisoners, can have damaging psychological effects. The prison service has responded by citing extreme risk profiles of inmates, legal constraints, ongoing efforts to improve healthcare provision. The debate remains unresolved. Self-harm and mental health. Belmarsh has also been scrutinized over incidents of self-harm and prisoner mental health. Official data confirms that self-harm incidents have occurred. Mental health needs are higher than in lower security prisons. While such issues are not unique to Belmarsh, the combination of isolation, long remand periods, legal uncertainty has drawn particular concern from medical professionals. Exact causes in individual cases are often not publicly documented, and prison authorities are legally restricted in what they can disclose. Staff under pressure. The strain inside Belmarsh is not limited to prisoners. Staff surveys and union statements have highlighted chronic understaffing, rising assaults in some periods, emotional toll of high-security work. Despite this, Belmarsh officers are considered among the most experienced in the UK system. Maintaining order here is not about force, it is about control, consistency, and constant vigilance. A prison that shaped policy. Belmarsh has done more than hold prisoners. It has influenced counter-terrorism law, shaped debates on human rights, forced courts to confront preventive detention, altered how the public views high-security incarceration. Few prisons anywhere in the world have had such a direct impact on national legal policy. And yet, its most enduring effect may be symbolic. Belmarsh represents the point where justice, security, and liberty collide. Life inside the cell. A Belmarsh cell. A cell in Belmarsh is not designed for punishment through brutality. It is designed for containment through restriction. Cells are functional and sparse. There is no personalization beyond what is permitted. Every object inside is regulated. Every movement outside is scheduled. For many prisoners, especially those assessed as high risk, daily life can involve being locked inside a cell for up to 22 or 23 hours a day. Eating meals alone. Limited access to association or group activities. These conditions are lawful under UK prison regulations, but only when justified by security or safety assessments. Whether such confinement becomes excessive is a question that inspectors, courts, and advocacy groups continue to debate. Time and isolation. Time behaves differently in high-security confinement. Former inspectors and legal observers have noted that prolonged isolation, particularly for prisoners on remand, can intensify anxiety, depression, and disorientation. In Belmarsh, some prisoners remain under enhanced restrictions for months. Reviews are conducted, but outcomes vary. External scrutiny exists, but access is limited. Prison authorities maintain that isolation is risk-based, not punitive. Critics argue that the line between the two can blur when detention is prolonged and outcomes remain uncertain. What is clear is that Belmarsh operates at the sharpest edge of lawful incarceration. Exercise and movement. Exercise at Belmarsh does not resemble freedom, but it is legally mandated. Prisoners are entitled to time outside their cells, typically in small, enclosed yards, under constant supervision, with limited interaction. Movement from cell to yard follows strict protocols. Staggered release. Escort by officers. Electronic locking at every stage. Even moments of physical movement are tightly controlled. This is not unique to Belmarsh, but it is more rigorously enforced here than in most UK prisons. Healthcare behind the walls. Healthcare in Belmarsh is provided through the National Health Service, as required by UK law. Inspection reports have confirmed access to doctors and nurses. On-site mental health services. External hospital transfers when necessary. However, inspectors have also raised concerns about delays in mental health treatment. Inadequate support for prisoners in prolonged isolation. Difficulty managing complex psychiatric cases within a high-security setting. The prison service acknowledges these challenges, citing staffing shortages and the extreme needs of the population held there. Communication and contact. Communication with the outside world at Belmarsh is limited but regulated. Prisoners may have access to monitored phone calls, supervised legal visits, restricted family contact. Mail is screened. Visits are controlled. Legal correspondence receives special protection under law, but even that occurs within strict security procedures. For some prisoners, contact with family is rare, not by punishment, but by classification. Isolation here extends beyond the physical. Violence and safety. Contrary to popular perception, Belmarsh is not defined by constant violence. Inspection data shows violence levels fluctuate year to year. Serious incidents do occur. Many wings remain tightly controlled. High security reduces spontaneous violence, but tension remains constant. Weapons, contraband, and coordinated unrest are persistent concerns, though specific incidents are often not publicly detailed due to security sensitivities. Order inside Belmarsh depends less on force, and more on prevention. Prevention versus punishment. Belmarsh exists at a difficult intersection. Many held inside are there not because of what they have done, but because of what authorities fear they might do, or because their cases involve risks that cannot be managed elsewhere. This raises a central question. Is Belmarsh a prison of punishment, or a prison of prevention? The law allows for both. Public opinion remains divided. What cannot be disputed is that Belmarsh represents the maximum expression of state control within the bounds of British law. Inspection and oversight. Belmarsh is subject to oversight by Inspectorate of Prisons, independent monitoring boards, courts and judicial review. These bodies have authority to enter the prison, interview prisoners, publish critical reports. Their findings have driven reforms, but change inside a high-security environment is slow and incremental. Transparency exists, but always within limits imposed by national security. The enduring question. Can Belmarsh change? More than 3 decades after it opened, Prison Belmarsh remains exactly what it was designed to be, a place of maximum control. Inspections continue. Legal standards evolve. Reforms are discussed. But Belmarsh does not exist to inspire hope, it exists to manage risk. For some, it represents necessary protection. For others, a warning about how far the state can go in the name of security. What Belmarsh ultimately reveals is not just how Britain punishes, but how it defines danger. Belmarsh is feared not because of myth, but because of reality. It is the prison Britain turns to when no other option seems sufficient. And that alone explains why its shadow stretches far beyond its walls. If you value factual, in-depth prison documentaries, subscribe to the Inmate Diaries. Your support helps us keep telling the stories others won't.